All right, this video is entitled Wow. Kind of a silly title for that, but if you look at the 2.8 lesson there, up the top it says wow. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a sarcasm here. Basically what we're doing in this section is, up until now, we've only seen problems where you have an a value of 1. So x squared plus, let's just go 6x plus 12. We've only seen problems where that a value is 1, whether a is inside or a is outside. So in this section, we're going to talk about, hey, how do we figure out, how do we go ahead and factor when a is not 1? So they're going to start off with getting us to observe something here in question number 1. What we're observing is that if I take, and I kind of get rid of this over here for a second, and pretend that it's not there, I covered up, you see the basic block we start with. That basic block is x squared. We're going to add these two sides because that's what we normally do, so plus 4x, and then we have the 3 down here. And basically all they're doing now is they're not dividing it into our single little rectangles. They're just telling us what's in each rectangle, how much is each. So that's plus 3, all right? So that's if we cover this up. Well, now if we uncover everything, what do you notice? I notice I have 2 of the same thing, or this here could be written as 2 times x plus 3. Well, that's a factor, so I've got to multiply this. So I can write this as 2 times x plus 3 times x plus 1. I could write it that way. That's a product of factors. Or I could go ahead and just put parentheses around all this, because this resembles one of these, right? One of the 2, and put a 2 out front. And that's what they have down here. If you notice underneath, here's the first version that they have, all right? If I distribute, and there's the factored form, by the way, okay? So they have it in there. If you distribute the 2 to everything, well, gee, 2 times x is 2x squared, 2 times 4x is 8x, and 3 times 2 is 6, okay? So here's what you get. Well, the problem is now we have an a value that's greater than 1. How do we factor this? How do we go from this to basically the unfactored form, and then how do we go here to find the sides of what our diagram would be like? That's going to be the challenge here. So let's dive into it. Question number 2 says try using some observations to factor each of the following expressions. So all it wants us to do is factor here. Okay, well, if I'm going to look at this as diagrams, as groups, or perfect squares, whatever they're going to be, how many would I have? That how many I have is based on the a value. So in question A here, I'm going to divide by 3. Can I divide everything by 3 or just the first 2 terms? Well, let's see. Well, gee, 3 will be divided by 3, 3 will go into 21, and 3 will go into 36. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to take and look at what each of those 1 models looks like. So I'm going to get x squared plus 7x, and how many times will 33 go into 36? Come on, if you don't know exactly, like I can't think of that. 3 goes into 3 once, so this is going to be plus 1. 3 goes into 6 twice. 3 times 12 is 36, so there you go. Right? That's all they want you to do. Okay? B. What would we do with B? Well, I have 2 groups, and what does each group look like? Well, I'm going to divide by 2. Can I divide by 2? Yes, yes, yes. So x squared plus 2x plus 1x. Got to rechange that. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Any number over itself is 1. So plus 1x, I'll put a 1 there. We normally don't. And then this is going to be a negative divided by a positive. Oops, got to erase it. That doesn't work. So x minus 2, because 4 divided by 2 is 2. All right, next one. What's divisible in the next one? You should be able to gather this one. You should be able to look at this one and say, hey, by now you should understand we're dividing by the a value. So I'm going to divide by 3. All right, so 3 will go into x squared. And then negative divided by positive is negative. 27 divided by 3 is 9. There, I factored it. All right. And then the next one here. How many groups would I have? I'd have 5 groups. What does each group look like? Well, notice there is no c value. Okay? There is no C term. So what that tells me is I've added something to one side, but not something to the other of my model. Remember what that would look like? It would look something like this, where I have X on a side and I did something else, because I have no single unit X's. That's really what that's saying. Okay? It doesn't ask us to draw a model, but then we get, what do we get? We get X squared plus 10 divided by 5 is 2x. Remember, when you're taking out, to check, you must end up with what you started. So 5 times x squared is 5x squared, 5 times 2x is 10x. So I know I factored them correctly. So we're kind of looking at things in groups. All right? So now, because she is given a great business, hold on, I got somebody at the door, I'm going to take a time out. Even though I don't pause my videos, we will see. We'll have to look and see who is there. They walked away, so I'm not going to worry about it. Probably someone needs something signed. They should have got done yesterday. So now, what do you notice about the diagram and the question for the area? What do you wonder? Well, notice what they've done. They've taken the problem here, all right, where A is 2, and they've given it to me in factored form. Notice where that 2x is. Oh, wait a second. I can't divide 2 out of all of these, but it's still factorable. So how are they doing that? They're using the model, like what we have, again, but they're not dividing this into the little sections. They're not doing that, okay? The 1x would be okay, but they didn't divide this into 6 pieces. They're just using those, and we understand that we need to add those together. So how am I doing this? Well, part of what they're doing is they're taking the last term and the first term, and a lot of you, I'm going to show you the x here, a times c. They're multiplying those two. So 2 times 3 is 6. That's the number that's going to go up here. Let me clean this up a little bit more. All right? So I'm going to multiply a times c. I'm going to get 2 times 3, which is 6. All right? I'm going to list my factors of 6. So 1 and 6, 2 and 3, those are all my factors. Now, which factors of 6 will add to give me my middle term? Which ones will give me 7? Because that's what needs to go there. All right? 1 and 6, you're absolutely right. So 1 and 6. Now, does it depend on where I put these? Yes, it depends on where I put these. Because now, what they're going to do is they're going to show you, hey, if I multiply x by 2x, I get 2x squared. If I multiply 3 times 1, I get 3. The middle portion here is what is a little bit, that's where you got to do some figuring out. You know that 6 and 1 are your x's, but does 6x go up here and 1x go down here, or do they flip-flop? In this case, they flip-flop. So, because what do I do to 2 to get 6x? I have to multiply 2x by something to get 6x. I have to multiply that by 3. So 3 is going to go here. And then what do I multiply x by to get 1? Well, gee, 1x, right? So there's your factors, all right? So 2x plus 1, all right? Let's try a couple more here. This one you got to pay attention to a little bit because they give you 5x and they give you 3. Well, start off with, let's start off with, I know I have to multiply these two to get 5x. So what has to go where? It doesn't really matter what you put where, except that you just start. So 5x and x, because that's what's going to give me 5x squared. That's what's going to happen, right? Now, what do I have to get a 3? That's a 1 times a 3 equals 3. So a 1 has to go here, or a 3 has to go here, or vice versa. That's what has to happen. Let me just put a 1 there and a 3 there. So did I get my factors? Did I get 5x plus 1 and 5x plus 3? Gee, 5x plus 1 and x plus 3. Is that right? Is that right? X plus 3. The problem with this one, question number 4, the problem with this one is if we list our factors like we should, okay, we multiply the a times the c, 5 times 3, and we get 15. What are my factors of 15? 1 and 15, 2 no, 3 and 5, 4 no, 5 already listed, 6 no, 7 no, 8 no, 9 no, 10 no. The problem is do they give me a b value? Do they give me a b value? What is b? In this case, I don't know what b is. I need to know what p is. So possible factors. Possible factors can be 5x plus 1 and x plus 3, or 5x plus 3 and x plus 1. Those are possible factors because I don't know what these are. I don't even know what one of them is. If I knew what one of them was, it would be helpful. See, like down here in question 5. In question 5, they give me a b value. I know b is 7. So question 5 is going to be a little bit better for us. So let's multiply that a times c. Let's use my x here. Again, this should be helpful to us as well. So 2 times 3 is 6. All right, and list my factors of 6. 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. I have to get 2x when I first multiply. The only way I get that is if I have 2x and x. It's the only way I can get 2x squared if I multiply, right? I have to get 3 here in the last term. So when I multiply these, they have to be 3. And you're thinking, well, gee, that's 1 and 3. Wait a second. Which factors add to give you 7? That's the 1 and the 6. So I have to use a 6x and a 1x somewhere over here. Let's just put 6x and let's put 1x. I have to use those. They have to be used because when I combine these, I've got to get the 7x. Here's where you got to do some thinking. Okay? Well, 2 times what gives me 6? 2 times 3. Because when I multiply these, I got to get a 6x. X times what gives me 1? X times 1. Well, gee, 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 2 times x is 2x squared. So now I'm just going to go back and say, did I multiply this correctly? Okay? I got to combine these to get 7, so it looks like I did. So 2x plus 1 times x plus 3 end up being my factors. Notice how I use the x, okay, to list my factors. Let's try a couple more. Let's try 6. All right? I'm going to use the x, and I'm going to say 2 times 15 is 30. So now here's the challenge. I got to find factors of 30 that give me negative 13. So it says negative 13. So 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4, no, 5 and 6, 6, yes, 7, 6 is already listed, 7, no, 8, no, 9, no, 10, already listed. All right, so I went through 1 through 10. I want to find factors of negative 13. So how do I get a negative 13? My negative 13 is minus 3 minus 10. All right, so now I want to use my box to help me out. So I've got to have 2x and x, that's going to give me 2x squared. My 15 has to go down here, and the factors I have to use that add right here are going to be minus 3x and minus 10x. So minus 3x minus 10x. Right? They have to go in there. Does it matter where I put them? It should not. It should not matter where you put them. Now ask yourself, what do I have to do to get 10x? What do I have to do to 2x to get a negative 10x? I've got to multiply that by a negative 5. So negative 5x. What do I have to do to x to get a minus 3x? I've got to multiply by a negative 1. So is negative 5 and negative 1, is that going to help complete this? Well, multiply. X by x is 2x by x is 2x squared. All right? And I said negative 3 and I wrote a negative 1. Negative 3. Okay? X times negative 3 gives me negative 3x. So it takes care of the top. 2x times negative 5 is negative 10. And what's negative 5 times negative 3? That's a positive 15. You have factored correctly. You have 2x minus 3, and you have x minus 5. Those are your factors. Right? So we can see how we would do 10. 7. 7's the same way. I got to multiply 3 times 10, and I get 30. Now you got to list your factors of 30. Well, gee, they're already listed right over here. Okay? All right? It just so happens that this a times c was 30, and this a times c is 30. So which factors are going to give me 1? right here is going to give me 1. So now if I use my box, right, I got to have 3x squared. So how do I get 3x squared? 3x times x. I've got to have negative 10. Negative 10 tells me one of these factors has to be positive and one has to be negative. It's a positive x, and I have to add them. So plus 6 minus 5. All right? So this is what I'm going to end up doing. Hold on. Got another visitor. All right? So when we look at this, your factors are going to be plus 6x and minus 5x. Again, it should not matter where you put them. What do I have to do with 3? Well, in this case, actually, it's going to matter. It's going to matter. Because what do I have to do to 3 to get to 5? I can't do anything to get to 5. So what if I change this to a positive 6? What if I flip-flop these? Maybe this will make a little bit more sense. This is minus 5, and this should be 6. What do I do to 3 to get to 6? I got to multiply by 2. Okay, positive 2. What do I do to x to get negative 5? I multiply by negative 5. Right? So now if I combine these, I get the x that I need, the positive x. And if I multiply, hey, I get what I get. Right? 3x times x is 3x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x, which is what I need. 2 times 3x is 6x. And 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. So in some ways, yes, it does matter. All right? I retract my statement for what I said with 6. It does matter. All right? So the next question you have to ask yourself is, does the pattern work for problem 7? Right? So we looked at kind of a pattern. 2 times 15 to get 30. 3 times 10 to get 30. All right? I'm going to leave that to you. I'm going to say, yeah, I think it does. If you think the pattern that Anushka, I believe, is how you say this name, notice will help. Try to write 2x squared plus 9x minus 5 in factored form. If you don't think it works, use whatever works for you. So I'm gonna show you 3 different ways to do this. So here's the box method right here. All right. So we're gonna go ahead. We're still gonna have to list our factors. No matter what method we use, we're still gonna have to list our factors, right? Do you think I can divide 2 out of everything? Can't do that. So I can't break it apart. So that method isn't going to work. All right? So 2 times 5 is 10. So erasers don't write. 2 times 5 is 10. So list my factors of 10. 1 and 10, 2 and 5, 3, no, 4, no, 5, yes, listed, 6, no, 7, no, 8, no, 9, no, 10, no. Again, we get pretty quick at going through those factors. Which of these factors will give me a positive 9? The 1 and the 10. The only way that happens is if I have a positive 10 and a negative 1. It's the only way it happens. And remember, I need a negative 5 here, okay? And I need a 2x squared here. You're saying, well, you put 10x there. Well, when I multiply, I've got to get 10x. So, and when I multiply up here, so start with this first one. 2x by x. What do I multiply 2x by to get 10? 5. Erase. It's got to be just a 5. I'm running out of room there. Okay? So 2x times 5, that gives me 10x. And is that a positive? Yes. It's got to be a, oh, come on, don't do this to me. It's got to be a positive. Well, what about over here? X times what gives me negative 1, minus 1. There's your factors. All right? So we could divide, all right, but I can't divide everything out. So in some ways it doesn't make sense. I'm going to stop the video here for part A, and we'll move on to part B. I don't know if we'll get to 10 in class or not. I kind of don't want to. That's kind of a lot for today. Ask questions as you need to. I know it can get a little confusing, and you're probably going, yeah, wow, this is complicated. It's not that bad. You just have to practice.